All right, everybody, welcome back. So before we get started, I think I'm gonna switch to a weekly upload schedule because this is gonna be the last video where I can just pull it out of me. Because unless I do some reviews of stuff that's already been out there, which I guess I'm not opposed to, but I've just now finally hit the point where if like I'd have to get new figures, and I got a lot of stuff going on right now, and yada yada yada. So I've been trying to sprinkle in some of these, and today we're looking at well, the last video I did was kind of a showcase of all my MCU Marvel Legends, all the touch-ups and customs that I did with those. And today we're going to be looking at my comic book figures. Although I say comic book, there is also some Gamerverse Spider-Man stuff in here. There's some animated series stuff, and there's some what if stuff. I kind of got those all separated from the live action section. So it's not purely comic book, but it's more, you know, stuff that's not live action. So also, I've been sick since I've started this channel, and it is just hanging around. In these last couple days, it has got me bad. So I'm probably going to sound the stuffiest I ever have in this one. So sorry about that. But starting off, I guess we can look at Cardiac here. Now, the earlier videos of mine, I had already opened these off camera, and some of them I had already touched up before they got on camera. I think this is one of those ones. So this probably is one of those ones. So sorry if you've seen this, but this one was pretty fun to do. Yeah, actually, now that I remember, I remember talking about this. So sorry about that, but we're already here. So it's just adding silver to the boots, the gloves, every single pouch on his wrist and leg and boot, going over his rod, his big rod, and then the silver electrical effects there. And yeah, so that's him. Kind of gonna breeze through this one now that I realize what I've done. And then, oh, I did add some darker white, I guess gray to the musculature to help it stand out a bit. So let's get him out of there because he's already been shown. So, but one I know for a fact I did not show because I wanted to do an open, like an opening and unboxing, go over it, and then after that I would touch it up. And my plan was to bring that out and show it before my next review. I forgot every single time. So, but here's the one, Black Widow. I opened this out of the box on camera, reviewed it, and this is the final product. Now, I'm not doing a whole lot of repaint on these new ones, super minimal. But I did go over all the Widow bites with another gold. I did go over the zipper with a silver. And there's that seam line that goes all the way from here, down there, and up to the zipper. I just did a darker gray. And I think this is a nice example of something so small. I don't know, it stands out to me. I don't know if it's super standing out to anybody else, but just that seam being a darker line, I just think it really adds to it. You know, I don't like when there's a detail that probably could have been painted and it wasn't. So that's what I've been doing. Super minimal. Some of these get a little bit more crazy, like these last couple ones, kind of whatever. And this one as well, Agent Anti-Venom. As you see, I did give him one of Cable's guns that I did repaint. But all of his guns were like a marbly blue. I didn't like that, so I went over with a gunmetal gray on all of them. So at least they look a little bit more realistic, and there are silver bits here and there I painted just to differentiate some color there. And then silver buckles on his leg, the buckle there, and the middle line I filled in with black. Oh, there's some black straps here that were unpainted, so I painted the straps black, and there's actual buckles too that I painted silver in there too. So that's a fun little detail. I will say though, if you do this to the guns, anything that a character has to hold, I would recommend getting, I meant to grab it before the video started. It's like, I think it's called Liquitex, and it's like it's this liquid substance you put over it. It's a sealant essentially, but it gives it a gloss look. They make matte ones too, but I find myself using the gloss finish, and you gotta kind of be quick, but you can't lay it on thick, because if you're too crazy with it, depending on what you're painting, you could gunk up joints really easy, and if you don't spread it out, it can kind of glob, and so you gotta kind of know what you're doing. But if you're painting stuff like something that a character holds, it's going to be scraping against the plastic to even get a grip on it, I recommend painting or going over with that Liquitex stuff over the guns, because it'll make it to where it probably won't chip. Because right now, if I were to take out any of these guns, there's going to be my dark metallic paint that has scraped off. And it's not a super big deal, because I'm probably always going to have them holding these, but I that's lazy on my end. I should have done that. So that's what I would recommend doing if you're gonna paint stuff like this, or even the staff here on Cardiac. Just go over it. It doesn't hurt. It's a little tedious. You gotta wait for it to dry, and it will, unless you wash it really good, it will gunk up your brushes and whatnot. But it will really make stuff look way more shiny. So and then what else? I feel like I'm missing. Oh, the indents on his arms there. You see how there's silver in there? I did that to the shoulder ball underneath too. It's not the greatest because it was super hard to get in there, but they're mostly covered. But I thought it stood out that they weren't painted like the rest of that arm there. So those are painted in there now. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot went into this, but like those lines were super tedious, and I probably spent more time on the guns, taking turns on each one, getting them to dry, yada yada yada. But like I said, if you're gonna, I would honestly recommend like anything. Like I'm mostly focusing on metal stuff, but you should probably always seal it with something. Like I said, they do make a matte version. I will say though, it never dried as matte as I wanted, because my previous collection, I was trying to, if it was like a cloth costume, I wanted it to look as cloth as it could be, like not shiny. Plastic's always going to shine, but it doesn't have that factory sealant on it where it's super shiny. So it looked really good when you had somebody like Spider-Man in a cloth suit next to Iron Man, who was super shiny. I would recommend putting a sealant over it regardless. But more so with metal, because I recently just touched up my Quantumania Kang. Weird, because I thought he wasn't shiny enough, because whatever his costume's made out of is super shiny. So I actually just went over it with that sealant, and I think it looks much better. He's not in this video, but I just thought I would mention, if you're gonna paint stuff that their holdings can be scraping, just go over it. It doesn't take that long to do. And then we have Ultimate Iron Man, and I don't know, if it's going to be super apparent what I've done, but I did all the dark metal gray. I did go over myself, and if there's panel lines on the dark metal gray, I went in with the lighter silver, as you can see. Kind of all the joints in the fingers there. Little indents in the armor, I did silver. I did go over the gold. There's very minimal gold. Silver in the ear. I left this middle portion alone. I don't know. I like this screw looking thing. I painted silver. Kind of, yeah. The end of these guns, I painted silver. And I just think it looks a lot better. And I mentioned before in a previous video that for whatever reason, different paints behave differently, but I've always found that metallic paint sticks to the plastic and it becomes the most durable. So I don't really feel iffy about moving this guy at all. So it just takes to it and kind of sticks on there. Although I do realize now that the dark metal gray around the circle here, I forgot to paint, but it's not that noticeable. But yeah, just I think something like this, where it's supposed to be metal and you just go for it all metal, ends up working. So there's that. And then moving on to the only Gamerverse one I have here. and that is Black Cat from Spider-Man. Now, a little creative liberty here. Because looking at the reference image, the only thing on the reference image that I saw was actually missing was the silver zipper right on the neck there. I added that. And maybe I could have added a darker white to the fur bits, which like dry brush, which I'm not opposed to doing. But I just couldn't help myself, even if it isn't super accurate, is a lot of these white lines you're seeing were not filled in. Those were black. And that was technically accurate. However, I like this. Again, sometimes you can take creative liberties. This is the one I chose to take. And I don't know, I just kind of, because it just looked kind of cheap to me with all those details lost in the shine of the black. So again, that's a personal choice, but it is something that made me like this a little bit more. Also, I'm noticing now, I don't notice this in the lighting in which I paint these. It's kind of until I get them on camera for the world to see. But I'm sure there's a better way to do this. I'll just go with white and try to stay in the indented line, and then I'll wipe it off. And however, looking in this better light, I can kind of see how there's still some residue of the white that shouldn't be there. I don't know how well you're seeing it there, but if you lightly take an alcohol cloth, it'll usually get those spots off. So I could probably stand to touch her up a bit, but yeah. And then here's Cable from X-Men 97. And this one, what did I do here? The seam line on the pants here, I did a darker blue. I filled in every seam line of the brown of any of the pouches. And I went over every stud with silver there. I went over the belt with silver, indented that line in there. As you can see, I've touched up the gun as well. Super shiny. Like that. I touched up his arm. Kind of differentiated some silver and gunmetal grays in there. I went over his earpiece silver. I went over that neck piece there. Silver and gunmetal gray. And then, oh, there's that little piece of dark blue under the head there. Oh, I also did the indents of the collar piece, but that piece right there is supposed to be a carryover from the design choice here, and I just painted it. Super small thing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I love painting weapons and guns, making those look more metallic, and you can kind of get a little bit more creative. Decide what, because like this part here, I just made it darker. I made the holes there darker. You know, just kind of, it's fun to kind of play around with the design of it. Panel lines here and there. And at the end of the day, I just love when metal looks metal. And I love the way he shines. I mean, watch. That thing is shining. I love that. So there's that. And then here we have some what if figures. Now, what if, I don't know if this is going to make sense. What if is an animated show. However, I don't believe within the context of the universe, I'm going to get a little nerdy here. If you were to go to the What If universe, which either one, whatever branch stemming from 616, I don't believe you would enter an animated universe. And what I mean by that is I don't think the What If that we see, I don't think it's like inherently an animated universe. We're just watching it through an animated medium. I hope that makes sense. And if you look into like character designs and why some of the, like, they don't follow your typical character design. That's why sometimes when you're watching it, sometimes you're not sure who you're looking at. And that's because I don't believe this is like Spider-Verse. That's like obviously a love letter to animation. That's an animated universe. If you know, but if a what if character were to portal into our normal 616, I don't think they would be a cartoon. I hope that makes sense. And like even like Agent Carter, we've seen a live action version, even though that's a different version from What If. Anyway, my point is, I like to make these What If figures look as real as possible. So I kind of give these a little bit more love. And in a perfect world, I would try to find head sculpts that would work to get rid of the animated looking head sculpts. So yeah, just kind of little info dump there, I guess. But I bring that up because this one's weird, because if you were to make this look as realistic as possible, you would just have the first version of this figure. It's just, it would be a different head sculpt, which already exists, and it would be darker colors. So it gets kind of weird, I know, but whatever. And back when I was doing full repaints, these things came out looking fantastic, but I'm just doing minimal stuff here. So something like painting the eyelets of the boots, adding some silver buckles here, painting zippers, going over some of the metal on that claw there. That is a gun I repainted as well. And then gunmetal gray on this chest area, panel line silver. And while it's not going as extreme in the realism like my old collection, I do love making these look more realistic and seeing that stuff shine in a more metallic way rather than the cheap plastic way. I just really like that. So yeah, super simple one, nothing crazy. Is what it is. So here's another one that's a little bit more intricate, but not as much as the last two here. That's Strange Supreme, I believe his name is. I went over gold belt buckles on the shoes there. I did go over the rim of gold. I didn't touch the inside gold because I didn't want stuff scraping off. I did add darker purples to like the shoulder area, the neck area, and I differentiated some of the colors on the belt up here. So there's different stuff going on there. I did paint the ring there gold, and that's pretty much the figure. I think the main thing here was going over the back here, painting those circular things gold. It took forever, man. But I think the finished product is super cool because the detail kind of gets lost in the shine. So actually taking the time to go over them, I just think it's super cool. It's kind of lame that's the back of the figure, and you're not really gonna see that, but yeah. Something I'm not opposed to darkening the hair. I think darkening the hair would help a little bit too as well, which is something I've done on one of the next few figures. But you know, anything to help these look a little bit more realistic, because in my brain, this isn't an animated universe per se. And the stuff they wanted to do in the show, they could never do financially in live action. So hopefully that makes sense to somebody else out there. But yeah, so that's him. And here's another one I think really boosted from the touch-up, and that's Warrior Gamora. Because I don't think, like, the figure already looked good. As a figure, though, I don't think it was very good. It looked good, didn't move good, still doesn't move good, but it looks even better. So, and I did paint that Thanos-y kind of sword thing there. But as you can see, it's mainly just going over the gold and filling in some panel lines there with black. And that's pretty much it. Nothing crazy here. It's just literally going over that. I did do gunmetal gray on the bottom of the boots there and kind of on the shoulders there. But yeah, and a little tip: if you want gold to look a little bit more deep, a little bit more rich, maybe a little bit more lived in, just kind of add some black to it, mucky it up a little bit, and then it kind of gives it that more. It does kind of give it a shine. I don't know how it works. I'm not a paint scientist, so. But yeah, this is one of my favorites now, and it wasn't before, and just based off of the touch-up I did. So I just love seeing it shine. And then finally, this is one of my favorite things to paint, and that is a zombie, because you can kind of be as disgusting and messy as you want, and I think it's going to come out good. Now, this isn't my favorite zombie. My favorite one is Zombie Captain America, because the last one I customized in the old collection, that was one of my favorite figures. And man, sorry if I'm breathing so heavy. I might perish. This might be my last upload. But darkening up that Zombie Captain America was awesome. I can't wait to get my hands on it again. But the next best thing here is Zombie Iron Man, as you can see here. Now, what I done was, first, I went in and filled all panel line silver, as you can see on the shoulders there, kind of in the legs, anywhere there was an indented line on the. Anatomy's hard on it when the camera's rolling. The leg, the shin. Then I went over all the gold, and then all the arc reactor lights I went over with metallic blue. And I don't think those were painted on the original figure other than the main one. But this suit in particular has a lot of them throughout the suit. So I did go in and do that. And then I added kind of scuffing to edges with silver, anything that I thought would rub against the armor. So that's why there's random bits there. And there's also random silver dings and stuff there. Added silver to the hands and stuff there around the arc reactor there. There are some darker gunmetal gray bits in there, like there, under the armpits there. And then the skin, I darkened up a little bit and then added more blood. Like there's blood now to the ribs in there. There's a bit of arm showing there with some bone. And yeah, just kind of darkened that up. Inside the nose, I went in with black. I added some teeth, blood there. And I did darken the eyebrows, the hair, and the facial hair. Darken around the eyes. I added some more blood here and there. There's a giant gash going through his head there. I added some more red in there. And yeah, oh, and then I made the eyes silver to kind of help it glow a little bit more, because they do kind of have a glow effect in the show. So there's that. You know, like I said, with a zombie, you can just get kind of crazy with it. Get disgusting with it. Oh, I also added some really dark brownish red to mimic the dried look of blood here and there. There was a little bit on the original figure, but you can really see it here and here. You know, just kind of knock out some of the shine because there's dried blood there. And I don't know, it's just super satisfying to paint a zombie, man. I love it. So can't wait to get my hands on Captain America again. I know there's Zombie Wanda as well, which is fun to do. And I would love more zombies from the What If episodes for sure. But ever since Marvel Zombies came out, there's even more potential. And unfortunately, in the last couple years, with Disney Plus in particular, you know, I kind of think they've a little bit of damage was done to the brand, I would say. Because back in the day, they were pumping out anything and everything, even if it was Disney Plus. So, but now I think they're kind of wary with, sorry, I'm trying to set up the thumbnail here. I think they're kind of wary with stuff, especially Disney Plus shows. So whereas before I'd be super confident, like, yeah, we'll get some Marvel Zombies figures. But now I don't know. But Marvel Zombies was received somewhat well, definitely better than What If, I would say. So I don't know. And plus it's zombies. I think zombies would sell well if people like the show or not. So, but I don't know. Like I said, I wanted this to be a follow-up to my MCU custom showcase. And here we have literally everything else. Some stuff's minimal, some stuff's a little bit more intricate, but I just, you know, I'm filming this right after the previous one. I'm not even worried about how stuff's performing right now because, you know, views are still small. Engagement is damn near zero, but, you know, it's just the name of the game. I will say as of right now, we've hit 20 subscribers, so that's awesome. Seems like I'm gaining at least one subscriber a day the last week or two, so that's cool. But like I said, I think we're going to start hitting a weekly upload schedule. That's not counting, like, you know, maybe there'll be one week where I've acquired enough customs to do another video like this. Maybe I'll do a video of this in the process. We just had that fan stream that I went over, so maybe there could be a news video, which, speaking of which, New York Toy Fair is going on right now. And I have seen at least, I don't know how many more reveals are going to happen, but I have seen at least 2 new Marvel Legends reveals. One of which being, oh man, what was it? It was a new Spider-Man, and I think there was Waldo's on it. Was it Max Dillon as Spider-Man? I can't remember. I was never familiar with that version of Spider-Man. But we also got a character that really hits my childhood kind of in the same way as Ultimate Iron Man here. But that's Professor Hulk, but the 90s comic version with the bunny slippers. It's always been an iconic look for Hulk for me. So I don't know, depending on how many new reveals get made, maybe after this I'll check, see what's going on. Maybe I can do another mini news video. I just don't know if only two figures warrants all that. So I don't know. Oh, then they also announced Marvel Legends line, like super big Hulk hands. But I got some thoughts about those. So I'm going to give it maybe a little bit more. I don't know how long New York Toy Fair is going on. I'll keep an eye on stuff. But if it hits a point where I feel like there's enough to do a kind of a coverage video, maybe I will. Otherwise, it'll just be a quick 5-minute video or something here and there. But so be on the lookout. But as always, guys, thank you so much for 20 subscribers. I know that's nothing to most people, but that's everything to me. Please comment, like, subscribe, notification bell, and let me know in the comments, what do you think of these? Which one of these are your favorite? Is there something I did that you're not a fan of? Do you have questions about the process? Are you going to tell me how awesome my zombie Iron Man is? Because that'd be pretty cool. Just kidding. But anyway, I appreciate it so much, guys. And on that note, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.